Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, we had a tumultuous Derby prep weekend, and that's going to mean some revisions to our top 25 contender list. And we've got some additions and defections, as we always do, including some international additions, which we hadn't had before. So let's take a look at it five at a time and see what we got. Number 25 is Major Dude. Had a nice second in the Jeff Ruby. Was no match for Two Phils, however. But this one has definitely been more prominent on turf, and I'm not sure that they'll even send him to the Derby. But if they do, he has some halfway decent dirt form. I'm just not sure he would stack up as well as if he were on the grass. So we'll just have to see what they do with him. Number 24 is Fantastic again. Had a nice front running third in the Jeff Ruby. Very, very difficult, as we know, to wire a field on synthetic, but he definitely made a nice effort, and this one has some talent. So if he can transfer it to the dirt, that would be very welcome in this field because it lacks early pace. Number 23 is Dura Iride, I believe is how you pronounce it. Had a second in the UAE Derby, and the Japanese went 1, 2, 3, 4, and fairly boring race because they went 1, 2, 3, 4 pretty much all the way around the track. This one stayed behind the leader, the winner, Derma Sotogake, and may have some talent. So if he does get in the race, we'll have to watch out for him. Number 22 is Slip Mahoney. Did it around one turn in the Gotham. It was a pretty good second. I definitely want to see that around two turns to see if in the Wood Memorial. It should be a class step up in class as well, so we'll see how he fares. Number 21 is Ray's Kane. Again, won the Gotham, and he did it around one turn, but he did close pretty well and drew off from the field. So if he can do that around two turns, that makes him a player in the Derby. Number 20 is Sun Thunder. The Louisiana Derby was certainly disappointing, though he was a little more forwardly placed and he did close mildly. I was expecting a little better effort. The lack of early pace certainly compromised his chances, and he's a little more pace dependent than I thought he might be. But I think this one still has some upside, so we'll see how he trains leading up to the Derby. Number 19 is Confidence Game. Now, won the Rebel Stakes, and we'll see how he does in the Arkansas Derby. But as I noted, I think the slop helped him a great deal, and the way he was finishing in the stretch, I think he's pretty much run the as much as he's going to. I'm not so sure he's got another step forward. Number 18 is Jace's Road. Had a good third in the Louisiana Derby, though the pace was pretty slow. He was backing up at the end, which gives you a concern about distance. And but he could he would be an early pace presence, and with a little better post, maybe he could be more of a factor. This field definitely needs as much early pace as it can get, so we'll see how he does. Number 17 is Disarm. Had a pretty good second in the Louisiana Derby. I still think they're rushing this one along, but he clearly has the talent to deal with it. He was pretty impressive, and I think, given his prior efforts, that he's got some talent, and with a little more training, I mean, he could factor in the Derby for sure. Number 16 is Mage. Great at second race, and the Fountain of Youth moved him right into two-turn stakes company, and despite the bad break, he still finished prominently. So I think that shows some talent, and we'll see how he does in the Florida Derby, but this one looks like a comer. Number 15 is Derma Sotogake, the Japanese import who just won the UAE Derby from gate to wire. It was a pretty impressive effort, and despite the pedigree on this one that looks kind of sprint, he seems to really relish two turns and more ground. So the Derby could meet him between the eyes, and again, running from the front end with this field might be to his advantage. And the Japanese are totally dominating international competition. They went 1, 2, 3, 4 in this race. In the UAE Derby, rather. So I think we have to take them much more seriously than normally we might. And this one looks like a pretty good one. Number 14 is Rocket Can. He has left Florida for the Arkansas Derby, maybe a little softer field. Could give him a chance for a win. Certainly wasn't going to get that against Forte. This one continues to improve, and if he takes another step forward, he goes from a fringe player to a major contender. Number 13 is Skinner. Had a nice San Felipe, a closing third. Needs to be a little more forwardly placed, but nonetheless, it was a pretty good effort. And this one definitely seems to have some upside. So looking forward to see what he does in the Santa Anita Derby. Number 12 is Hit Show. Hasn't run against much in New York. Won the Withers pretty easily, but he should get a step up in class in the Wood Memorial, and that'll be a big test for him, and we'll see how he does against major competition, but really hasn't done much wrong so far. Number 11 is Go Rocket Ride. You couldn't ask for a better second race lifetime. First around two turns, first in Stakes Company in a pretty good field, and he had a really nice second. So there's some major league upside for this one. And again, because he runs forwardly and up on the engine, he could be a major player if he can improve off of his San Felipe, which seems pretty likely in the Santa Anita Derby. Number 10 is Verifying. That debut allowance win where he put away Gunpile was pretty impressive. And so I believe there's some talent there. Had a disappointing effort in the Rebel Stakes for sure. But I think that was the product of a pretty lousy ride by Florent Giroux. It was very indecisive, couldn't figure out what to do with him. So I think this one will fare better the next race he's involved in. I believe it's the Arkansas Derby, but it may be the Bluegrass. I'm not sure. But I think this one, in his next race, if he moves forward, I think he becomes a major player. Number 9 is Angel of Empire. Won the Risen Star, and it was more a product of getting the trip. But I think this one has some upside, and he definitely wants two turns. And I think the more distance he has, the better he's going to do. Number 8 is Reincarnate. Had a bad break in the Rebel Stakes, but showed his versatility as he's able to recover from it to get up for third. I think this one will be more forwardly placed, and that definitely gives him an edge over a lot of runners in this field. And I think this one has some upside, so I'm looking forward to see what he does next. Number 7 is Tapit Trice. That Tampa Bay win was pretty impressive, but as we noted, it had to be because he really didn't get engaged until it was almost too late. And Saez really had to lean on him to get the most out of him. Clearly has some talent, but he's going to have to break better and get more involved in the race because an effort like that against a classier field isn't going to cut it. Number 6 is Red Route 1. Tyler Gaffleone will have the mount for the Arkansas Derby, and the last time he had him, he had Red Route Run more forwardly placed and more involved in the race, and but for some traffic issues, might have factored a little more prominently. I believe it was the Futurity or the Jockey Club, one of the two. But I think that's a good sign, and perhaps if they get him more involved in the race, he could finally get that elusive win. So now we come to our top 5. Number 5 is Two Phils. Had an awfully impressive win in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, albeit on synthetic surface. Got a 101 buyer, and he and Forte, I believe, are the only two to register a buyer that high this year. So that's pretty impressive, and he definitely improved where I thought perhaps he had plateaued. So I think this one has become a major player, and if he keeps moving forward, then he could even be a win candidate. He's not flashy, but he did run a really professional effort in the Jeff Ruby. So I think the future's pretty bright for this one, provided he trains well for the Derby. Number 4 is Instant Coffee. I'm willing to draw a line through the Louisiana Derby. I'm not sure he was tuned up all the way. I think his connections thought perhaps he had enough points to get in the Derby, so they wanted to save some effort there. However, it turns out he's now kind of on the fence, and it's going to take more points than it usually does to get in the Derby. So he may find himself on the outside looking in, but if he does get into the field, I think his prior efforts are not going to dissuade me from seriously considering him. He's a grinder, and those type of runners always seem to factor late. Whether or not he has enough to win is another story, but I think this one is still a contender. Number 3 is Kingsbarns. They gave him the lead and he took it. In the Louisiana Derby, set really slow fractions. Nobody went to get him, and he drew off easily. I think that was a pretty nice effort, and it was definitely a move forward, which you always want to see from his prior efforts. And 2 turns is certainly not going to be a problem for this one. So I think he demonstrated that he's definitely to be taken seriously. and the fact that he runs up near the pace is it should be very favorable for him in the Derby. Number 2 is Practical Move. That San Felipe showed that he's improved off his 2-year-old form. 2 turns doesn't look to be an issue. I do have some concerns at 1.125 or greater if he will be as effective, but he hasn't done anything right now to tell you otherwise. So Practical Move is definitely a contender. Number 1 is Forte. No surprise there. He hasn't done anything wrong. Debuted in the Fountain of Youth with a really nice win. I'm not sure they're going to tune him up all the way for the Florida Derby, but because he has enough points to get in, he doesn't need the race. But Todd Pletcher generally wants to have his horses win, and so I'll expect a good effort out of him in the Florida Derby. His post is not the greatest at 11, but we'll in our video about that we'll analyze his chances. But certainly have to consider him the class of the field and a major win candidate for the Derby. So that's our revised top 25 list. The preps over the weekend have definitely provided more balance to this field potentially. We've got more early runners and stalkers, so I think it's a more balanced Derby field, so it should make for a better race. I've got the Florida Derby and the Arkansas Derby coming up this weekend, and so I'll have analysis for you on those later this week. Let me know how you feel about the list, good, bad, or indifferent. I'd love to hear your opinions. You guys aren't shy about telling me how you feel, so I'll look forward to that. And of course, if you do like what you see here, please like and subscribe. Really like seeing this community continue to grow, and I'll talk to you later this week, and until then, be well.